I drifted off into a completely different space, which was so incredible that there were these pine trees around me, and there was pine needles everywhere in my jersey, everywhere. And I realized that the tops of the trees were swaying with the wind. And that's why they never break, because they are not resisting the wind. Here's the wind and the the pine tree's not going like this. It's flowing with it. And these strong tips of these trees just flow with the wind, no matter how hard the wind is. And everything flowed in non-resistance. And that's really important. It was non-resistance, which was the essence of instant manifestation.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to First Contact. Today, we have a very special guest that is quite dear to my heart, and I'll talk about that in a moment. I would love to welcome to the show Lisa Garr. Now, Lisa probably needs very little introduction. You've probably already seen her on her various platforms. She has the Aware Show. She's on Gaia TV with Inspirations with Lisa Garr. You'll find her on Coast to Coast AM as well. So we'll welcome Lisa. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here.
Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be your guest. Thank you.
Absolutely. Now, for the audience, I want to give you a little bit of preamble here as to why I've specifically brought Lisa Garr on the show. I'll take you back just to earlier this year when I was obsessively watching near-death experience videos on all the famous channels that you've probably heard. And I know that Lisa has had a near-death experience. So today I brought her on the show to talk about that a little bit. And also just having known Lisa Garr through Gaia TV, I feel like I'm very honored to be in your presence here today.
Oh, I'm excited to share with you. And I have questions for you too, because always going to be an interviewer, but I'd love to know why your obsession. What's your obsession with NDEs?
It's hard to describe that. I think that's a question that I have asked myself as well. What I can tell you is the experience and why this is actually good for me to share on First Contact, because up until now, we've only really talked about the galactic side of things. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I've been obsessively watching these near-death experience videos, and they just make me cry. They really make me cry. And I think it's because every time I hear an interview from someone who's been to the other side, I feel the transmission of source coming through them. You're probably very familiar, Lisa, with Anita Murjani, who I also met earlier this year. And
Yes.
I'll be interviewing her on a conference coming up shortly. And listening to her story, I sat in the back of that room and I just bawled my eyes out,
Mm.
because to me it's a remembering of who we really are and that connectedness. And every time I listen to a near-death experience story, I haven't had one myself, but through my meditation experiences, I feel like I'm tapping into that similar frequency. So it feels very like at home for me. And that's why I really want to go down this rabbit hole now in First Contact and start hearing more of these stories.
Good. Actually, I don't recommend the near death part of it. I recommend the experience,
Yeah, exactly.
but I do not recommend the near death part because it usually is associated with some type of accident. And
Yes.
you can reach the same states of consciousness through meditation, through visualization, through
Exactly.
guided experiences, even just flow or
Yeah.
being in the zone. Or I'm sure you have reached it in many different ways because it's accessible to everyone. And
Yeah.
I don't suggest, I don't know, maybe the accident part knocks, my experience was that my conscious mind got knocked so far offline that all I was the unconscious, the subconscious, seamless mind. It wasn't even a mind. It's definitely not a mind. I mean, that's a very local thing, is the mind. It was so much more expansive than that. And what I did experience was this sense of oneness, Eesha, that you're included in. It was a seamless, boundaryless state of being that you are a part of. It's
Mm.
nothing was separate in my experience. Nothing was separate. And actually, I saw how the universe worked, where I was in this mountain and I was on a bike race, a mountain bike race, which I loved. And it was just such extreme conditions in that race. And it was 108 degrees and it was about 24 miles and 25, and I probably passed out from the heat before I hit my head. So it was a let go. I was almost at the end of the race and I knew all I had to do was descend, and I somehow just let go. And my head must have hit a rock because my helmet was shattered. And then I ended up at the bottom of this, thank God for that helmet. But I ended up at the bottom of this ravine and I was looking up at my bike and my body kept wanting to go because the adrenaline and the motion was still happening in the body. But I drifted off into a completely different space, which was so incredible that there were these pine trees around me and there was pine needles everywhere in my jersey, everywhere. And I realized that the tops of the trees were swaying with the wind. And that's why they never break, because they are not resisting the wind. You know, here's the wind and the palm tree's not, I mean, the pine tree's not going like this. It's flowing with it. And these strong tips of these trees just flow with the wind, no matter how hard the wind is. And everything flowed in non-resistance. And that's really important. It was non-resistance, which was the essence of instant manifestation.
Yeah.
And I even got this feeling. So I had this feeling that these medics that were helping my body get it on a stretcher and they landed a helicopter, and I was observing it, but I was mostly feeling their feelings of what they felt. The medic's soul calling. It was not about being a medic even. There was one that was an artist, and I felt this calling to be an artist like it was me. And then I felt this attraction to another medic, like there was a relationship brewing, and it was like I was feeling it as if it was me. It wasn't separate than the medics helping my body. And I felt that in that moment that goals and heart longings are not things that you put out there in a target and you set at all. When the goal and the longing is truly within you, you have heard it from every sage out there that be the change you want to see in the world. And it's the art of being, and it's being and becoming that which you want, that you desire, and it will manifest, because that's what I experienced. That was the essence of what I took back, was that goals were just out. A goal was validating that it's outside of yourself and you're never going to get it.
Right. Wow.
I
Wow.
know, right? Just a whole flip the goal thing on its head. And I'm like, what? We've been good at this all wrong. And ever since then, it heightened my sense of awareness in all ways. And I started taking these classes in psychic awareness because I was the most comfortable there. I felt like I could reconnect with that seamless connection. So I started doing readings. I found myself in the psychic fair, and then I studied with them for 5 years doing readings, reading people's energy and pictures. And I was incredibly good at it because there was no separation between me and them. And it felt good. It
Yeah.
felt connected. It felt so good. And I would see pictures and around them, and then I would read these pictures and then they would heal. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. And then I started a radio show.
I can feel the energy as you're talking about that, just the beauty of that oneness. And I think you raised a very important point to maybe skip the death part of the near death
Yeah,
experience.
I don't recommend it. Usually there's something that breaks, or that head injury, it took me years to recover from.
Right.
And the inflammation that went with the brain and all of that took me years. And
Yeah.
I had lost my voice too. I broke that connection in the um, center of my head that was responsible. It was for the language part of my brain and the cerebral cortex in the middle, and it broke the connection to speak. And I couldn't say my name when the body got to the hospital. And then the doctor put saline in me and revived my body. Wow, it was a whole thing. It was just fear set in at that moment because he asked me my name, and fear is such a thing. It ejects you, or it puts you right back into that fear center of your brain. So you can't, I lost that sense of oneness instantly because I lost my ability to speak. I was panicked, terrified that I couldn't put a sentence together. And that took me years of neurofeedback. And actually, it's why I started the radio show, because the neurofeedback, you have to keep practicing over and over and over again, just like the psychic work. And I started because the people that were helping me heal my body, I would interview them, and coincidences, state of being, oneness, a radio station was being sold, and it was being sold to another network, and the drive time host left. And so it was all coincidences, but I found myself on that drive time in Los Angeles main spot talking to the people that were healing my body. It was never had that been done before. And that station then folded, and then I went on to other stations and networks, but it was all because I was in that incredible space of manifestation. Yeah. And that's why I'm saying I'm not special or separate. I don't recommend the hard part. I just recommend the seamlessness. Like if you can get this, what I'm talking about, and if you get the transmission of what I'm saying, it's possible for you to do as well. It's just, I can never unsee it in my mind. I know it's possible. And then I can see the difference though, but I know what's possible. And I want you to know that it's possible for you too. That's my mission in life.
It's so
That's my
beautiful.
mission.
I have a ton of questions for you, Lisa, and
Okay,
also I want to add a little bit of context of my experience in this as well. So you asked me just before, what is it about the near-death experience? So I have shared this on my channel quite a bit, but I'll tell it to you, Lisa, so you know the context of this as well. A few years ago, I had the experience of oneness without dying. So
great.
actually being in that. So when you talk about it, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Good.
And I can also relate to then losing it and going, where is it? And then embarking on this journey to find that again. That's why I'm so passionate about consciousness. I mean, we started First Contact as a way to really empower the people to take that journey into their own hands, not needing external proof, not needing external validation, giving them the tools. We have a galactic community where we teach that work. So for me, it's all about consciousness, which I'm sure it is for you too, right? Once you have seen what you've seen, it's that piece of knowing, yes, we're having this physical experience, but actually there's this greater consciousness. And the way that I experienced it was I was literally just laying in bed, nothing spectacular. Like I was literally just in bed. I was coming out of a difficult experience in life. So I think that sort of helped to with the letting go, as you mentioned, like the letting go of the conscious mind.
Hmm.
And yeah, I was just laying in bed and suddenly everything in the room disappeared. And I'm on the edge of the cosmos. Like I'm seeing everything. And there's stars and there's nebulas, and I have the sense that my body is on a bed. I can feel the physicality of that, but my consciousness is in this absolute vastness. I cannot see the walls in front of me. All I see is just infinite space.
Mm.
And yeah, at that point, I also had this realization that creation happens instantaneously. So, when I was standing on the edge of the consciousness, if I thought about, say, a pig would appear. If I thought about healing, healing would occur. If I thought
Oh,
about money, money would come. Like it was just there. There wasn't any gap between, this physical body and the creation that's occurring. And having had that, very tangible experience, and then waking up the next morning and going, wait, but how does that work? And then, the mind kind of comes in sometimes and tries to make sense of it all. And so I went through this whole journey, and I guess the exploration out of that, which I want to discuss with you today, is how do we get back to that state? Because for those of us that have had these momentary experiences, I'm sure there's plenty of our audience out there who have maybe had a near-death experience or had a spiritual heightened experience where they have had a sense of this. How would we maintain that on a more regular and ongoing basis?
I think the biggest thing is to recognize the difference between that state of flow and the state of fear.
Mm.
One is completely expansive, boundaryless, instant manifestation. The other one is contracted, small, and a void of creation. And we get into that. It's actually interesting because it's what we're sold, because it is easy to control when you're in that place of fear.
Mm.
We get reactionary and the cortisol rises, and then we make um, terrible decisions, and the serotonin leaves the body, and it's a cascade of hormonal choices. And when you flood the brain with the oxytocin, the opioids of the brain, the serotonin, the all of the great neurotransmitters that happen in that state of oneness, possibility is limitless. Ideas flow, new thoughts, connections, vibration occurs of a frequency that goes out and comes back in. And you recognize the fear, you send that signal out, you're going to get so much more of the same. This can happen, and that's going to happen, and the death, doom, devastation, fatality, it's all such a contracted state that there's, by recognizing the difference, what would you choose? Honestly, what would you choose? Would you choose to be in fear every day of your life, projecting what could happen, the fatality of the worst possible scenario? Would you live a day in your life like that? I know people that do, and they attract so much of the same. And it's really hard to watch. It's exhausting to
Mm.
know that there's a difference. But that brain is addicted to cortisol, addicted to the stress hormones. And the other brain is craving the opioids of the brain, craving, that's maybe not a good word anymore, but craving the serotonin. Yeah.
Mm.
So that's kind of, once you know the difference, Eesha, then you need to make a conscious choice of what it is that you want. And then you be the change. And it's very interesting, and it's difficult because my mother is that way. She is predisposed to fatalistic thinking. She's a classic fatalistic thinker, but she doesn't see it. She does not see it. As much as I can tell her about it, that's not going to happen. No, that's not going to happen. She says, oh, this is my way of preparing for the worst case scenario. And guess what she attracts? All of that. And it's
Worst
really
case
hard to witness.
scenario.
It's so hard to witness. Yeah. But it's her choice. And I get it. You know, she cannot see another way, even though maybe that was my gift, that I was raised by a woman like that. So my true blessing was to create the contrast.
Right. Wow, that's so powerful. Lisa, I'm curious, because I have, as you know, watched so many near-death experience videos and have gone down this rabbit hole for quite some time. And there's a lot of variation in experiences. For some people, it's the oneness. Some people, they meet galactic beings. Some people meet angels. Some people meet God, Jesus, whatever they believe in. What do you think is really there on the other side? Is it all of it? Do you only see what you're connected to? How do you think that works?
Think it's your worldview. I think it's what you're connected to. You know of Raymond Moody, right? And his vast life after life. Are you familiar with his book? The kind of grandfather of the near-death experience. And he has done thousands and thousands of near-death experience recreations. He's interviewed thousands of people on it, but he's able to recreate the experience. And it's what your worldview is. Kind of. Kind of. It can kind of be a worldview experience, but I didn't have that when I went to that, when I was in that space of that state, that dimension, I guess you could, whatever you want to call it. I experienced the feeling of Asia, the color, the frequency, and it was these pastels, but it had an imprint of Asia, like a frequency of Asia. I had never been to Asia. And it wasn't China, it wasn't Japan. It was a it was just a feat, and I had never been there before. And I kept wondering what that was all about until 15 years later. And the pastel colors that I was seeing in that near-death experience, I was in a scene, was a scene with my best friend's husband and my husband in Bali. And our husbands went to swim in the ocean, and they dove in the first wave, and they didn't, my best friend's husband, Gina, didn't realize that it was a shore break, and he broke his neck on his first dive. And my husband, who was an ex-lifeguard, went and did a lifeguard hold out of the water and brought him onto the sand. And we're sitting there on the sand, and I'm looking at what he's looking at, and it was the same colors of the horizon of the sunset that I had seen 15 years prior in my near death. It was the same scene. And so what I also realized is that when you go, it is nonlinear. No time, no space. It doesn't matter. It's nonlinear. I wasn't even aware of that until after my best friend's husband survived. And a year later, she and I are on an airplane, and an airplane was empty. And we were just sitting there in the seats. And I said to her, oh my God, the colors of the sunset that Mike was looking at were the same colors that I saw in the NDE. And it was just, and we were in this plane looking at the same colors out the window. And I'm like, whoa. It was one of those mind-bending, there is no time and space. So I hadn't had any prior experience of those things. So I believe it could be worldview, or it could really truly be another dimension. That's why people see spaceships or black holes or entire other universes, and aliens or anything could be possible. We're not alone. I mean, we're not alone in this galaxy. That would be naive thinking. And that it exists, that we could tap into it. It's all consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Everything is energy. Simply put,
Wow.
right?
I'm just trying to picture that moment of realization for you where you go, oh my God, and that penny drops.
I remember it like it was yesterday. We were sitting on, and it was so unusual because the plane was empty, and we were sitting on the arms of the chairs
Yeah.
talking to each other. And then I looked out the window, and it was the same colors, and these pastel colors of at a Balinese sunset, a very specific. And it is mind opening. It's mind opening because then you realize most of my friends who've passed away, I have a better relationship with me at the other side, because I don't have to deal with the telephone and email. I mean, we can just instantly tap in and connect. And I've gotten so much communication from those that have passed on, because um, I ask and I say, where are you and what is it like? And there's a frequency that you have to meet at, because their frequency is so fast and out of this world. I mean, we can't even imagine that dimension. And ours is in this density still, even though we might elevate our frequency. We have to go into meditation, visualization, nature. You have to get out of the city. You have to go into nature because the frequency is higher there. You have to get out of all the electromagnetic frequency above the noise. Then you can go into the meditation. Then you can almost go to a place where that person or soul can reach you. And I've gotten some of the best communication there. Some of the best communication. I have so many of my conversations. That's why I'm still a mountain biker, because I can't give up the mountain biking. I don't race any longer, obviously, but I love my conversations with the divine. All of my guides, friends, God, all of that happens for me out in the mountain.
What kind of messages do they give you?
I mean, I ask questions about specifically, where are you? I mean, Wayne Dyer was a very good friend of mine and a mentor. And he told me how he passed, which was all about going to the light, going to the light, going to the light. And that was, he kept saying the light, going to the light when he was doing his lectures. And he showed me that. He said, I was searching for the light. I was always searching for the light. And he went into a meditation one night, into a deep, 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 deep meditation. And he simply forgot to return the breath to the body. It forgot the bodily function. He was so allured by the light. And the diagnosis made sense to that because it wasn't a heart attack. It was just a heart arrest. And the communication after that was all about his family, all about his children, all about that. And it was for a long time about that because they were in such shock and that he was so concerned about them. And it took a while, but he got the communication to them that they needed. And then he started to say, the more that remember me, the longer my spirit can be around, because those that remember in the millions draw his spirit closer to this frequency. So that's true with any loved one. The more that you remember them, call on them, remind yourself, look at pictures, you and several others will pull their frequency towards you and keep that spirit alive.
Wow.
And then I noticed that my father and Wayne connected, which was amazing because my father was a scientist and he always was curious about my spiritual life. And he asked me before he passed, he looked at me and he said, how does this work? Do I just pull the sheet over my head and it's over? How does it, where do you go? Because he didn't believe in the afterlife. Guess who showed him the afterlife? My friend Wayne.
I love that.
Love it. I mean, they had astral journeys and he would show me my father was fascinated in astrology and he showed me all of these, he had telescopes and he would love eclipses and he got to be it, experience the galaxies. And wow, the vastness that they would even try to show my tiny little brain, I could never have created on my own. I
Mhm.
mean, that vastness is incomprehensible for the human brain. But when you experience the vastness of the galaxy, they tried to show me a little of it. And it was just oh my God. I mean, it was so fun, I must say. It was so expansive and you got to play in it. It was fun. Does that make any sense?
It actually really does more than you
Does,
know.
does it? Yeah.
Because I've had those experiences where I have, in a dream state or a meditative state, gone up, seen something, like seen a scenario playing out, and then 2 weeks later had that experience and going,
Ah,
"That's right, I created that." Like it's
mhm,
sort of deja vu to the next level, you know?
100%. Yep.
And I wonder,
Mhm.
that was going to be my question for you, if you've experienced those sorts of deja vu moments where you consciously remember, oh, that's right, I did create this, I chose this, and then you have that little sort of giggle about it, you
Oh
know?
yeah. Oh yeah. I get these great messages. When I'm stubborn, I tend to be very, a little high frequency, a high octane person. And if something isn't working, I will try it and try it and try it and try it and try it again until it works.
Yeah.
And when it just won't, I'll get this little nudge and it'll say to me, you know, we designed that way. I mean, it's supposed to be this, you're supposed to look over here. So I definitely have had that experience, and it's been constant communication with the divine. And I'm in constant communication with the divine. And it's not a God in the sky, one human being, male figure type. It is universal energy that is the collective consciousness of belief. That is what I see as this as the God being. It's a collective consciousness. Remember I told you the more people that believe in something, the more that it pulls that frequency towards us and surrounds us, right? And you look at this around religion, and religion is a mass groups of people having the same belief system and making it so, making it real. And it could be different gods that are believed in by these different groups of people and these different belief systems, and they breathe it into belief. And that is what I see as religion. It's beautiful. I mean, it's really a collective consciousness. So if you tap into it, it's strong, it's palpable. You know, I had the opportunity to go, I was in Italy recently, and I went to see the shroud of Jesus Christ. And it was displayed in this long case, and in Turin, in Italy. And there's a lot of controversy around the shroud being date appropriate and so forth. But you know what? It didn't matter, because the people that kneeled before this shroud embodied the belief of the shroud, embodied the belief of Jesus Christ, embodied the belief. And it was so, I was more fascinated by them than the shroud at all. It was just so beautiful. You know, this man came in front of me and he kneeled, and his body turned into this relic of prayer. I mean, he was so beautiful. You could tell he has been praying for his whole life. And that, to me, belief to me is I'm fascinated by belief. Love, love belief. I don't care if you believe in cheese. It's just fascinating to me that, well, there's a lot of people that believe in cheese. It
That's why it exists, right?
it does. I mean, look, it's an art form in France. But look, it's all about belief. I mean, Oprah did a beautiful documentary on belief and belief around the world, and it is true. It is what brings together communities and beings, and it forms into religions, and wars are fought around it, and territory. Unfortunately, there's a lot of history around belief too.
When I had that experience of being in the consciousness, something that came through for me was around belief. It was this idea that that things only exist because enough people believe them to. Like the fact that we're on this call with this technology, you know, in other countries is because the entire collective consciousness has agreed that this is a thing, that it even exists. So,
Yes.
you know, even something as simple as the walls, the houses, the buildings, the shopping centers, our universities, our roads, infrastructure, everything exists because enough of us have decided that, yes, this is the thing, which made me wonder if we just collectively, like all of us, just had a new decision, a new belief, what would that look like?
You see it a lot in protests. You
Right.
see it in, I mean, that's one of the greatest examples, is some of the best movements have been created by the power of the people protesting on streets, believing so strongly that they should remove their hijab, or they should be, that there should be peace in a region. And it takes a while. It takes a while, but there's a lot of people that are, you know, marching for the belief of peace in the Middle East. That, if you really intentionally believe into it and breathe into it on a daily basis and create an altar around it and really look for that as a resolution, and just non-attachment, keep breathing into people's lives being saved and some type of agreement being created that is a win-win for both, for all. And you don't know the how, and you don't know the, you know, the details. You just imagine the peace.
Mm.
And if enough continue to do it, it could happen. But then there's the fear. Fear comes in. Here's this person, and there's the agreement, this, and the news around this, and then this many died, and then the suffering, and then heinous crimes, and all of that. It's just like cancel, 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 cancel. And I get it. You've got to report on the facts, and there's spins, and there's also belief. What if you just report on belief? Wow, wouldn't that be amazing?
I think it
Today
would.
on the Belief Network, we have this group of people that believe in this. I mean, you see it everywhere, Eesha. You see it in cults. You wonder why people do the things they do.
Lisa, you say that so naturally. I feel like you need to start that station.
Yes, the belief network, right?
That's it, absolutely.
It's fascinating. It's endlessly fascinating. I just love it. I just went on this trip to France because my daughter lives there now, and it's hard because I miss her. And I get it though. The simplicity and the beauty that she's experiencing in the village. She's a professional cyclist. So it's where you need to be. And we would just follow her riding through these beautiful villages. And we were looking at the like instant village community fromagerie. I mean, just beautiful. It's just beautiful. Belief is beautiful.
Having had that experience of oneness and going through your near death experience as well, you've seen what it's like when everything is instantaneous and it's all one, and there is no fear. I have to ask though, for you, what has been the gift in the density? I feel like there's a reason why we've created this experience, knowing that outside of this planet, yes, we are one, we can create anything. And I feel like that is actually the natural state, but we've chosen this. What do you feel like is the gift in this experience for you?
Hmm. I can imagine what the gift is. My mission in life is to lift light workers. And if enough get lifted, then they help one person. And that person helps one person and one person. So, I created the Aware Show, which is my interviewing brilliant thought leaders and scientists and people about belief and awareness. That I've been broadcasting for 25 years. And from that, I created a program called Rising Stars, which is people that are not best-selling authors and on the circuit, but actually just regular people like you and me and everybody else has a mission, has a story to tell. And that story gets told that impacts somebody else. And it creates an incredible healing for them and an incredible healing for those that hear it. And so on my YouTube channel, on my Aware Show YouTube channel, there's a section called Rising Stars, and it's me interviewing these beautiful light workers that are doing the simplest of things that are terrified of being interviewed. But when I get into this conversation with, there was an artist, and her work is very intimate. And it was about her childhood experiences, but she could only explain them and heal them through her art. And I said, well, let's do an interview where you show the art and you tell the stories. And she's like, no, 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 I could never do that. She showed up. Oh, beautiful, beautiful work. And her views have been hundreds of views where people are touched by her work. And it's a freedom of expression for people to be able to experience the Rising Stars program and feel that their interview lives there forever, and they can point people towards it, and it's their best version of their story by them telling it, and I've coached them into telling their story in a linear fashion. And I think that's part of my mission here, is to lift others. It's absolutely to lift others. It's part of that grassroots movement.
Mm.
And it's not just the leaders, it's really most of the biggest movements that we've seen in our planet have been created by people, everyday people. And those people have a story to tell. And when they tell that story, it heals themselves, it heals those that hear it, and it deepens their purpose to continue to help others. That's what I envision.
That's really beautiful. I have this theory that, somewhere along the way, we as the consciousness decided that we were going to come into form and have this experience, and as a result of that, we were going to have unique and new experiences. In the
Mm.
process of that, I feel like we've stumbled upon things like suffering and pain, grief, but then we've also had this opportunity to have linear expressions of love, like going on relationships and building memories with people, and going on holidays and getting on planes, because if we were able to instantaneously transport ourselves anywhere, which you can in the cosmos, theoretically, right? Then we wouldn't have the experience of, like, for example, the longing that you now have for your daughter, the
Right.
experience, the very human experience of missing someone. So,
Mhm.
I wonder sometimes, that there is a lot of intentionality behind the way that we've created this density. I just I look at the world around me and I go, what if instead of seeing it as a suffering, we saw it as an experience? Now, I don't want to discount, like, there's some horrific things happening out there. I don't want to discount people's
Right.
experiencing trauma or anything like that whatsoever. But there are certain aspects where I think, what if we change the lens on that? What if we change the perception on that? Knowing what you know about the oneness, I wonder if that brings a deeper level of appreciation to the experience that we do have.
You know, the best way that that's told is through Esther Hicks
Mm,
channeling Abraham. And she says, contrast creates clarity.
right.
And it's so true. If we were just blissed out all the time, we wouldn't have that contrast to know that the bliss was real. And there's lots of levels of contrast, unfortunately. And we can create it so that we know darkness can't exist without the light can't exist without the darkness. The same way, it's the contrast. It exists everywhere. And if you actually look in nature, you see creation and destruction all the time. Creation, destruction, creation, destruction. You see more destruction than creation these days, but the winter is the destruction so that the spring can be the creation. And it happens cyclically and it happens all the time. And if you tap into that, it could be devastating destruction and it could be blissful creation. I think the opposites need to exist. In a way they do. I mean, I'd like it if everyone was creating consciousness and bliss all the time, but that's not the way it is. There must be a divine plan for this contrast to exist, and therefore it does. But you can lessen the level of contrast. You can help those that are experiencing the hardship, like unable to have a positive thought or unable to get out of a difficult slump. You can absolutely help show them and just be a different way.
Mm.
Yeah.
Do you think there are civilizations out there that, as a general, are higher in vibration and maybe not so much embedded in that fear vibration?
Yes, I do.
Have
I
you
do. And
encountered any of them, maybe through your connections on the other side?
I've seen an incredible one. It was absolutely incredible. I did a past life regression, but instead of going to a past life, I went to a future life.
Oh,
And I saw this community, and we see a lot of intentional communities that live among us now on Earth. I mean, there's the Ananda Foundation, and there's all sorts of intentional communities out there. But this was it was like these white tubes, and you lived in these white bubbles, and you could go from bubble to bubble depending on the type of environment that you wanted to live in and exist in. And there's more natural ones. There's ones that are filled with love. There's ones that were filled with it like extreme challenges that heightened emotion. There were intentional collaborations that made those happen. It was fascinating, but it was also not on this planet at all. It existed in a hovering space, but it was dynamic. Like these pods would move constantly and connect they were all connected, and it was infinite. And it was wonderful. You could go to these different pods for different experiences. Yeah.
where do you think this place is or was?
Hmm. I mean, it could be in the future. It could be a place that exists simultaneously. It's
Like another
possible.
dimension type of thing?
Sure. Like I saw the nonlinear experience of something that was to happen 15 years later. Why couldn't that exist now?
Right.
why couldn't anything, that you envision or imagine exist now? That galaxy, it's there. I mean, think about how long light even takes to travel here for the star that we see. It originated from somewhere light years ago, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's incredible. That's a very, very unique experience that you had. I don't think anyone's ever quite described it like those bubbles of experience. And then the first thing I think of was, if Earth is in one of those bubbles, which one would it be in? Because I feel like ours is so eclectic, you know?
Yes, it is. It's such a unique place, Earth. It's such a unique place. And there's so many experiences. I mean, I live in a very dense, busy city in Los Angeles. And then there's, of course, you live in Australia and you're probably in not as much of a population density. I don't know where you live, but it is, there are different experiences that we live simultaneously, and that we can connect like this is incredible, seamlessly, without any latency. That's just incredible.
As you're saying that, I'm just getting this vision of the interaction between the macrocosm and the microcosm at play. So you're describing these big bubbles, and everything has a different experience. And then you mentioned about the cities, and yeah, it's exactly that. And then I
Right.
wonder how that can keep translating at different levels, even down to the emotional and cellular level, like within the body, having the different pockets of experience, even within, like in here. So you're seeing it like out there, but we know that everything's this fractal, right? It's just
Yes.
having this little moment of download as you're saying all of that, going, oh, right, that totally makes sense.
Everything is a fractal. That
Mm,
is so true. That was one of the things that got communicated to me when I asked Wayne where he was.
mm.
And he said, I'm the fractal of a sunset. And the prism of that fractal is what creates the sunset, because it's all reflection, right? It's all water and light and reflection and the clouds of a sunset. And it's that is exactly what we can create, is if you have one tiny fractal in your awareness of what it is that you want to create or be, you can expand and replicate that fractal into being.
Wow.
Yeah. It's
Wow.
all about belief, and it's all about continually practicing that imagery and that belief system. And I don't think it works for anyone other than yourself. You can't wish it for somebody else. I don't think that works, because a it's just not this, it's not a frequency match. It's not a vibrational
About
match.
prayers, though, like if you pray for someone to have an experience, do you think that has some weight?
It's your prayer for them. They have to want it.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. It has to be a vibrational frequency for them. If you pray for their soul's desire to be fulfilled, that is more in alignment, because then the prayer is for their fractal to be fulfilled,
Of their
but
choosing rather than you
of their
imposing.
choosing, right? But
Right.
not my fractal for them to be fulfilled, because it might not match their vibrational frequency.
That is
I know it's,
very
yep.
profound. Yes.
And they might not even know that it's their soul's calling. They
Ah.
might be creating something completely different. And it could be, so if I intend something for my daughter, yet she's operating the vibrational frequency of a limiting belief or a non-believing pattern, I can't wish for her to have success in something if her belief and frequency is that of non-belief and not good enough.
Can you wish for her to have healing around that belief?
Yes,
Right.
yes. For her to see it, become aware of it,
Right.
change it for whatever she wants to, however she wants to witness it.
Yes.
Yes. And in someone's healing as well, if you're praying for somebody who is ill or has been in an accident, you look to the soul and say, whatever their soul's desire is in this, to be manifest for its highest good. So maybe that, my case, my accident, maybe my soul's desire was to create the Aware Show. So that was my highest desire at that, due to that accident.
Do you think some of these experiences happen because somebody's off track and that's the universe putting them back on, or was that the track all along?
Could be both, really. I mean, I believe in living a life of prayer and constant connection with the divine. So if you're praying for a certain outcome and you really are wanting to get rid of the limiting belief and see clearly and listen to the communication that's coming in, that is what starts to manifest. I think it's both.
That's so beautiful. Lisa, it's been such an amazing conversation. We've gone into so many incredible topics, and I just want to thank you for your time here today. And where can people learn more about you?
You can just go to theawareshow.com, and that is where you can find all of my programs and coaching programs and the Rising Stars program and everything.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Lisa. And before we finish up today, could you give a message of hope or upliftment to the people that are tuning in with us?
Oh my goodness, yes. My biggest message is pay attention to where your thoughts go and really, really try to be intentional about those thoughts, even in daydreaming, driving, whatever you're doing. Make sure to keep your thoughts high at a frequency that is in a very intentional frequency that's in tune with manifestation, because you know that those thoughts go out and create a vibrational frequency. So be very intentional about your thoughts.
That's
Very
beautiful.
intentional.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And for everyone tuning in today, if you enjoyed today's episode, please give us a like, share, subscribe, comments. Let us know that you loved it. And go check out Lisa Garr on theawareshow.com. Thank you, everyone, for listening into today's episode of First Contact.
Thank you.